It was the spring of 1945, the war's final, desperate act. Over the skies of Bavaria, the once invincible Luftwaffe took to the air again, but this time, their weapons looked like they'd come from the future. The Messerschmitt Me 262, the world's first operational jet fighter, a marvel of engineering, faster than anything the Allies could field. To many German pilots, it was their last hope and their last boast. They called it the Stormbird. Twin jet engines, swept wings, and a speed that made propeller-driven planes look like relics. When it roared to life, it wasn't just an aircraft, it was a statement. Germany still had teeth. But for all its power, there was arrogance and illusion. Many German pilots believed the Me 262 could turn back the tide of war. They taunted the enemy, streaking past bomber formations too fast to be caught. They flaunted their speed. They believed they were untouchable. Until one day, the Mustangs came. The American P-51 Mustang, agile, deadly and patient. Its pilots had been watching, waiting. On an early April morning, over the skies near Munich, a group of US Mustang aces from the 357th Fighter Group caught sight of something unusual, a formation of jets glinting in the sun. They were fast, yes, but they were also vulnerable. Because every Me 262 had one fatal weakness. During takeoff and landing, it was slow and exposed. Isep got a jet rolling out on the strip. Tally-ho, let shits get him before he sits airborne. And in a matter of seconds, the hunters became the hunted. What followed was not just a clash of machines, but of beliefs. The Germans believed technology would save them. The Americans believed skill and persistence would. That morning, over a burning airfield near Augsburg, history proved which mattered more. This is the story of the Me 262, the jet that arrived too late, and the Mustang aces who refused to be outrun by the future. By 1944, the war had turned against Germany. On the Eastern Front, the Red Army surged westward. In the West, the Allies dominated the skies with waves of bombers and escort fighters. The Luftwaffe was exhausted, its seasoned pilots killed, captured, or burned out. But Germany had one secret weapon, the Me 262 Schwalbe, the first operational jet fighter. The story of the Me 262 began not as a weapon of desperation, but as a vision of the future. In the late 1930s, Messerschmitt engineers had imagined a world where propellers were obsolete and jets ruled the skies. By 1942, prototypes were flying. By 1944, they were ready for combat. But innovation alone could not win a war. Fuel shortages, Allied bombings, and production delays plagued the program. Many pilots were reluctant to trust the new technology. Some feared its volatile engines, which could explode with the slightest mishandling. Yet in the minds of the Luftwaffe leadership, the Me 262 was a symbol, proof that Germany could still fight, still dominate, still change the course of history. Pilots were hand-picked, veterans who had survived countless dogfights over France and the Reich. They were proud, skilled, and ambitious, yet many carried an unspoken fear. They knew the Allies were relentless, and that every flight could be their last. Across the Atlantic, Allied intelligence had been tracking these developments. The P-51 Mustang had already proven itself as a game-changer, escorting bombers deep into enemy territory. Its speed, maneuverability, and long-range capabilities made it the perfect predator. By early 1945, the stage was set for an unprecedented duel in the skies. On one side, jets fast, deadly, and futuristic. On the other, Mustangs, agile, relentless, and piloted by men who had mastered the skies with propellers. The question was no longer whether the Me 262 could outfly the Mustang. It was whether human skill, courage, and determination could match the technological marvels of the jet age. This was more than a battle of planes. It was a battle of human will, ingenuity, and the harsh reality of war, where even the fastest machine could not outrun fate. And yet, behind the roaring engines and looming dogfights, these were men, terrified, hopeful, and determined to survive. Their stories would soon collide in the sky, leaving scars that history would never forget. War is often measured in numbers, planes, bombs, and losses. But behind every aircraft were human beings, young men thrust into an impossible sky. In the Luftwaffe, the Me-262 pilots were a mix of pride and fear. Men like Lieutenant Heinrich Baer, a seasoned ace, who wrote in his diary, "The jet is magnificent, faster than anything in the world. Yet every takeoff feels like playing with death itself. I trust the machine, but not entirely myself." Many of these pilots were acutely aware that their triumph was fleeting. They had watched comrades fall not to enemy fire alone, but to mechanical failure, fuel shortages, and the relentless advance of Allied forces. Across the Atlantic, the American Mustang pilots were also ordinary men facing extraordinary circumstances. They had trained tirelessly, flown countless escort missions, and seen friends cut down by flak or enemy fighters. Men like Chuck Yeager, who would later become the first pilot to break the sound barrier, were honing their skills in brutal, unforgiving conditions. Every sortie demanded focus, courage, and the willingness to risk everything. Their mission was clear: protect the bombers, disrupt the enemy, and survive. Yet, when the Me-262 appeared on the radar, even the most seasoned pilots felt a pulse of awe and dread. For the Germans, the Me-262 was a symbol of hope and desperation. For the Americans, it was a test of skill and nerve. Every dogfight would not only determine the fate of planes, but the lives of the men inside them. These were young men, many barely out of their teens, grappling with fear and duty. They laughed, they prayed, they wrote letters home, and they flew into death with a strange mixture of resolve and terror. And in this crucible of courage, the skies over Germany would become a stage for some of the most dramatic air battles of the war, where technology met human will and speed met strategy. Soon these men, both hunter and hunted, would discover that skill, courage, and timing mattered as much as the fastest jet. Spring 1945. The Luftwaffe's jet squadrons had begun sorties over southern Germany. For the first time, Me-262 SES dominated the skies. Faster than any propeller plane, armed with 430mm cannons capable of shredding bombers in seconds. The Allies quickly realized that these new jets could no longer be ignored. Bombers were now at risk even before reaching their targets. Every mission carried a growing tension. One wrong move, and entire formations could be decimated. American pilots adapted. They studied the jets' habits, watching when and where they appeared. Intelligence reports revealed a critical weakness. The Me-262, though fast in the air, was slow and vulnerable during takeoff and landing. The stage was set for confrontation. Mustang aces like Colonel John C. Meyer plotted daring attacks on Luftwaffe airfields. Every sortie became a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Meanwhile, German pilots, proud and confident, continued to flaunt their new jets. Some flew low over Allied formations, taunting them with speed and firepower. Others relied on the jet's sheer performance, believing no propeller-driven plane could challenge them. But war is rarely kind to arrogance. Every Me-262 sortie was a gamble. Engines could fail, run out of fuel, or simply succumb to Allied anti-aircraft fire. And for every triumphant jet pilot streaking past a bomber, there was an American Mustang ace lying in wait, patient, calculating, and deadly. The skies were no longer just a battleground of metal and wings. They had become a stage of suspense, where human courage and technological marvels collided, and soon that collision would erupt in fire and smoke that neither side could forget. The Me-262 was fast, deadly, and awe-inspiring, yet it was not invincible. Its greatest strength, speed, became a glaring weakness at the wrong moment, takeoff and landing. Fuel shortages forced pilots to cut corners. Engines were temperamental, often exploding under stress. Airfields were bombed relentlessly by the Allies, leaving jagged terrain and shattered runways. Each sortie was now a test of survival, not just skill. American intelligence had noticed a pattern. Mustang aces began staking out known Luftwaffe jet bases. They waited in silence, circling just beyond visual range. For the German pilots, every launch became a high-stakes gamble. Some believed their jets made them untouchable until the first jets were cut down, flaming across the sky, pilots ejecting or crashing in ruined fields. Lieutenant Baer, once confident, wrote in his diary after witnessing a fellow ace shot down, "We are no longer masters of the sky, the Americans wait, and they strike when we are most vulnerable. The jet does not save us. It only delays what is inevitable." The Luftwaffe faced a moral and strategic collapse. Pride turned to desperation. Young pilots, once exhilarated by speed and power, now faced the unthinkable. Their technological marvel could not save them. This breaking point was more than a tactical weakness. It was the collapse of hope. The war was ending, but the skies were still a battlefield, and the cost of arrogance, fatigue, and technological overreach was measured in lives. For the Americans, the revelation was clear. Patience, timing, and human skill mattered as much as any machine, and soon the Mustang aces would exploit this weakness with precision, turning the tide of the jet duels. April 1945. The hunters had become patient predators. Mustang aces of the 357th Fighter Group knew the secret to defeating the Me-262. Wait for the moment of vulnerability. Takeoff. Landing. The only times jets slowed enough to be targeted, and when the Me-262 says finally roared down the runways, the Mustangs were already in the sky, engines screaming, guns primed. It was precision, patience, and courage combined. Pilots like Chuck Yeager and John C. Meyer struck with deadly efficiency. They waited, observed, then attacked, a ballet of steel and fire. Lieutenant Baer recalled one sortie. "I felt unstoppable until the sky betrayed me. One moment I was climbing, the next fire engulfed the wing, the Americans were everywhere, and we had no escape." This was the turning point. The once feared jet could no longer dominate. The Americans adapted, learning the jet's habits, exploiting their weaknesses, and striking decisively. Every Me-262 destroyed was a blow to German morale. Every Mustang ace who returned safely brought hope and confidence to the Allied air forces. The skies over Germany, once the domain of the unstoppable jet, had become a proving ground of human skill and daring. The technological marvel could not outrun courage, preparation, or the inevitability of fate. In the end, it was not speed alone that determined victory. It was timing, strategy, and the relentless will to survive, and the Mustang aces had mastered them all. The success of the Mustang aces was no accident. Each attack was carefully planned, a precise blend of intelligence, timing, and audacity. Pilots began by studying Luftwaffe patterns, which airfields housed the jets, which runways were active, and when sorties were most likely. Reconnaissance planes flew high above, noting movements, fuel shortages, and even the slightest signs of repair activity. Then came the waiting game. Mustangs patrolled the skies beyond visual range, blending into the clouds, engines throttled for stealth. They watched, silent and alert, as the main 262 SES lined up for takeoff. When the jets finally accelerated down the runway, the American pilots struck coordinated dives, synchronized attacks, and precise bursts of cannon fire meant that a single mistake by the German pilots could be fatal. It was a choreography of destruction, executed with calm precision under the most extreme stress. Mustang aces communicated constantly via radio, calling out positions, targets, and threats. Every maneuver was deliberate. Every shot counted. Lieutenant Baer described one attack later. "We saw them too late. Their formation was perfect. Their aim, deadly. We were fast, but not fast enough. The sky belonged to them that day." Mechanics, strategists, and pilots on the American side had worked in harmony. It was not just a battle of aircraft. It was a battle of planning, intelligence, and nerve. And in the end, it proved decisive. Through this meticulous execution, the Me-262's myth of invincibility was shattered. Speed and technology alone could no longer guarantee survival. The stage was now set for the ultimate confrontation. The moment when the Americans would decisively turn the tide of the jet duels in their favor. April 18th, 1945. Over the skies near Munich, the fateful confrontation unfolded. The Luftwaffe launched a squadron of Me-262s, confident in their speed and firepower. They were determined to prove that jets could still dominate the air. But waiting for them were the Mustang aces, calm, focused, and deadly. They had studied the jets' habits, anticipated their moves, and now the moment had arrived. The first Me-262 attempted takeoff. Its engines screamed as it struggled down the bombed runway. A Mustang surged from the clouds, guns blazing. In seconds, fire ripped through the jet's wing, sending it spiraling into the ground. One by one, the jets fell. The sky, once a domain of technological awe, became a graveyard of silver streaks. American pilots executed precise strikes, exploiting every vulnerability. We thought speed would save us. We were wrong. The Mustangs were everywhere, unseen until it was too late. That day, the sky was theirs. It was more than a tactical victory. It was the collapse of a myth. The Me-262, Germany's last hope to regain air superiority, had been humbled. The combination of human skill, patience, and courage had overcome raw technological marvel. For the Allied forces, it was a confirmation the war in the air was won not just by planes, but by the men who mastered them. And for the Luftwaffe, the lesson was devastating. Brilliance alone cannot save those who lack the support, numbers, and foresight to survive. The decisive battle had ended, yet the human cost, the fear, sacrifice, and courage, would echo far beyond the destruction. The skies over southern Germany fell silent. The once proud Me-262 SRE lay in charred wreckage, their pilots either lost or retreating in defeat. The cost of the jet campaign had been staggering, not only in machines but in lives and morale. For the Luftwaffe, it was a bitter reality. Technological innovation had arrived too late. Despite the marvel of the MiG-262, they could not reverse the tide of a war already lost. Young pilots, many barely out of their teens, faced the crushing weight of failure and despair. The American pilots, though victorious, bore their own burden. They had witnessed friends fall in combat, and the thrill of victory was tempered by the grim reality of war. Each Mustang that returned carried not just the pride of survival, but the scars of what had been seen from the sky. The battle was over, yet its lessons endured. The Me-262 had proven that innovation alone could not secure victory. It was human skill, patience, and courage, combined with careful strategy, that determined the outcome. The war would end in Europe just weeks later, but the stories of these dogfights remained. Pilots on both sides remembered the fear, the courage, and the fleeting moments of triumph and despair. Their experiences would inform the future of aviation, air combat tactics, and the understanding of what it truly means to fight and survive in the skies. In the end, the battle between the Me-262 and the Mustang was more than machines and speed. It was a testament to human determination, the unforgiving calculus of war, and the fragile line between pride and peril. The Me-262 was a glimpse into the future, a jet-powered promise of speed and dominance. Yet its story is also a warning. Even the most advanced technology cannot replace courage, strategy, and human skill. For the pilots who flew these machines, history was written not just in victories and defeats, but in letters, diaries, and memories. German pilots faced the bitter reality that pride without foresight could be deadly. American Mustang aces proved that patience, skill, and courage could overcome even the most fearsome technological threat. The lessons of these dogfights continue to echo. They remind us that innovation is only as powerful as the people who wield it, and that even in the most advanced machines, the human element remains decisive. Today, the Me-262 is remembered as a marvel of engineering, a symbol of ambition and the tragic limits of war. The Mustang aces are celebrated for their bravery and mastery of the skies. Together, their story captures the essence of World War II aviation, a world where speed, skill, and courage collided in unforgettable ways. If this story moved you, like, comment, and subscribe for more echoes of history. Because history is not just what happened, it is what we carry forward, in memory, in lessons, and in the courage to face challenges far beyond ourselves.